8:10 on the dot. Did I call it or what, folks? Look at this. All these good people here to see you, Lyle. It's great to see that. We got a bunch of people in chat. Let me see who we got here. We'll start saying hello to people. I see Keith, Northwest Pennsylvania fishing. What's going on, Keith? There's sister and crew member Betty over at A Couple Crosses Fishing. What's up, sis? There's crew member Avid. How you doing, Avid? Cody from 3+1 Outdoors. How you doing, Creole Catfishing? Danny still in Outdoors. There's Dead Sea Pirates fishing in the house. Crew member Freddie from Freddie's Outdoor Adventures. Georgia Outdoors is here. John Boy's Catfishing. Mark Barnum, how you doing, Mark? Parker Pursuits, what's up, Jerry? Takedown Catfishing, Kenneth, what's up? The Great Uptown, Chrissy Brown in the house. What's going on, Chrissy? She's also a crew member. Thank you for your support. There's Matt over at Want to Be Outdoors. There's Miss Annette from Annette's Catfishing. Brandon's Outdoors Adventures just popped in. I see Dale Hayslip. There's member Dan Thompson. Thank you for your support, Dan. I appreciate you. El Catfish Grande. I love that name. What's going on, bud? There's channel member and supporter, crew member, Fishing Freedom. How you doing, Richard? What's going on, bud? Fishing with Big Mike in the house. How you doing, Big Mike? George George Outdoors. How you doing? KY Redneck Outdoors. Lance McCoo from the Great White North. What's going on, Lance? Don't let the name Hawaiian Fisherman fool you. He's from way up there. It's colder up there where he is than where I'm at. Mike Stokes Fishing. What's going on, Mike? How you doing, bud? Missouri Live Outdoors. Mr. Kitty Whiskers. Nubby's Catfishing. QC Brian. Small Water Charters. What's going on, bud? Super Smurf Eric Fishing in the house. How you doing, Eric? Crew member Tim Molina. What's up, Tim Molina? How you doing, bud? Let's see. I think I got everybody going through the list one more time, Lyle. Think that's it. Cool. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Catfish and Crappie podcast. My name is Mark, and today, this is going to be an easy one, Lyle. I got my friend and the person who I am the co-host on Panfish Nation with, Mr. Lyle Stokes. How you doing, Lyle?
I'm great, Mark. Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for coming here and giving us some of your time. I appreciate you. Let me thank my channel sponsors here real quick. I want to thank FishBrain. That app is so cool. You need to check it out. We want to thank Amped Outdoors. Lyle, I told you I know somebody about some lithiums. Uncle Lou's Tackle. Colton over at Multibars, and Port Barrington Marina. Without those people, my show would be a lot harder to do. I also want to say hello to Crappie Day Fish On. James Albaugh just went in. James is in the hospital. Keep prayers for James in your heart. We want him to get better, and we want him out of that hospital, because them nurses are like going through hell with him in there.
Oh, that's right.
He's probably giving them such a hard time. And there's Carmel Muncie in there. All right, folks. So I couldn't think of a more fitting title than Catfishing Icon. Even though you do all sorts of fishing, Lyle, especially with the panfish stuff that we're doing now. Mm-hmm. But you've been in the catfish world for a long, long time. And I just wanted to talk to you and give you a chance to tell your story, because I know what it's like always being, on a show. Not as long as you, don't get me wrong. But you're always trying to highlight your guests and stuff. And I wanted to highlight you because I couldn't think of a better person to talk to about a lifelong adventure and fishing. I don't know how else to say that, but that's pretty good. But
yeah, we better leave it there before we mess up.
Nonsense. He's humble too, folks. At least for the most part, he's humble. Except when he's talking to me and Chad, then he don't care. And Dockery. That's behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah, Dockery.
So without being too vague, where did it all start? Where did Lyle Stokes get into fishing? We're going to go way back.
Well, my dad passed away when I was 15 years old, and some of the fondest memories I had with him was right before he passed, because him and I didn't get along 100% of the time, but we fished together. And I would have, we had horses and we done different things, and I would always have to go because he had such severe heart trouble. We didn't ever know when he was going to have problems and when he wasn't. So fishing, when we get to go fishing, that was awesome. We'd go fishing, and he liked to catch catfish, so that's what we fished for. And before he passed away, there was a friend of ours that had a big pond that my brother several years earlier had helped stock by catching fish out of different places and putting in there. And muskrats got a hold of the dam, and the pond pretty much was gone except for the very deepest spot in it. So we'd go down there and we'd catch They wanted to catch all the fish out before they repaired the dam, and we'd go down there and catch channel cat. 3 or 4 nights a week, maybe more than that sometimes, and they'd be anywhere from 1 to 2 to 5 pounds. If you got a 6 or 7 pound, it was a real big one because just channel cats was always in it. And that was some of the best times that I had with my dad. And then after Dad passed away, my brother got a boat. It was a 40 horse Elgin, and I think it was a 15 or 16-foot boat. It was yellow. And his father in law had a 40 horse motor on a John boat. And I'd go down there and fish with them on the Mississippi River below the Clarksville Dam. And in those days, the Clarksville Dam's like the Alton Dam is now. It was the go to place to catch big fish. And that's where my love for catfishing come from, was fishing with Mark and his father-in-law and his brother-in-law Frank and a bunch of us. We'd just go out and we'd have a good time, catch a lot of fish, and in those days, believe it or not, we run trot lines and jug lines and all kinds of stuff, and uh, we done that for a long time. And I finally decided it was taking too many fish out of the water and taking all the big ones because nobody put anything back.
Hmm.
But we're talking 45, 50 years ago. And nobody had the education or the knowledge in those days. We didn't. And then later on, I got to fish in tournaments, and I remember there was a granary below the Louisiana boat ramp on the Mississippi River, and everybody would put in for this tournament, and they'd race down to the granary where they was loading them barges. And everybody sit there, and we was catching channel cat and small blues, and once in a while you catch a flathead. Well, if you got a 15-pound fish, that was a giant. And then we found out that them big blues was below the dams and different places and how to target them, and it was game on then. So that's how we got started.
Yeah, as far as like limb lines and bank lines and all that stuff and trout lines and stuff, there's a lot less people back then. So there's a
Yeah,
lot less people taking fish. So
and a lot
that's
less people fished.
yeah, that's why we got away with it. I believe, at least in my heart, we got away with it a lot more back then
Yeah,
than, and we did a less of an impact back in the day. But I've never been limb lining. I've never been trout lining. I thought about maybe trying doing a little limb lining this summer. Of course, releasing everything I catch, just because I think that's kind of not fair. But I'd like to experience that. So to hear stories about stuff like that always interests me because it's back to I don't want to just say a better time, but a different time where
a
people
different
live
time.
different.
Yeah,
Well, people live different, and I'm not trying to age you or pick on your age or something, but things were definitely different, weren't they?
yeah, oh, absolutely was, and it was a way of life for a lot of us. And but we outgrew that. And one of the most fun things, if you're going to do that, Mark, is set you up some jugs and just chase them around. That's one of the most fun things you can do, and that's one of the best ways to get kids involved in fishing. They'd love to chase them jugs down.
They
They
love to
really.
see they love to see a bobber go under the water. Can
Yep.
you imagine their eyes when they see a 2 liter bottle go
Oh
under?
yeah. Yep.
Man, I'd get pretty excited at that. I still get excited watching them floats go
Of
under.
course.
I ain't gonna lie. Um, so basically, you were doing that. You had touched base a little bit on your tournament stuff, which I was thinking we're definitely going to talk about. But how old were you? Well, what year was it when you got into tournament fishing?
Um,
And was it like a natural? Was it a natural progression into tournament fishing from recreational or from putting food on the table fishing?
Well, it kind of was. I had some friends that was fishing tournaments, and some that I went to school with, and my brother had fished a few, and him and I fished some together, and it was addictive to me. once I started tournament fishing, there was no turning around. I fished some with my brother. I fished some with my cousin, and now that Gene's gone, them was some of the best memories ever. You know, him and I had trouble fishing, finding bait one time, and we was on a sandbar across from Clarksville one night right before dark. The tournament was the next morning. We had no bait, none, and we're out there with a seine trying to seine skippies up and stuff in our underwear where nobody could see us. We thought, but evidently they did. You know, but Gene and I done everything. We worked all that day and finally got some bluegill late in the night, and come down there the next morning. A friend of his, who became a friend of mine later on, walked down there and he handed me a big old frozen fish. He said, "You're going to need this," from what Gene said. I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Gene said y'all don't have no bait hardly." And I said, "No." He said, "Well, you need this." And it was the first time I'd ever seen skipjack herring, and it was froze and wrapped in newspaper, and we used it that day. And of course, we run out, but we had some bluegill that we had caught and out of his pond behind his house, and that made up the difference for us. But that was the first time I'd ever seen skipjack herring. And then as my kids got older, they fished some tournaments with me until cars and girls, and
The normal progression of
yeah,
kids, right?
yeah.
When
Then
they get to that age, they always come back, though. You'll fish with them now every chance you get, won't you?
oh yeah, absolutely. And I had a friend of mine named Keith Atkinson. He lives over outside of Columbia, and him and I fished several tournaments together. We had a lot of fun, and we really enjoyed that. And but when Cindy started fishing, it was different.
Well, I have to admit, I'm very, I don't want to say jealous, but envious when I hear all the stories of you and Cindy fishing together. My wife isn't into fishing as much.
Right?
You're a lucky man to have her by your side. You're a lucky man for her to threaten to hit you with a frying pan if you pull that boat out without her.
Yeah, that boat's going. She's going to be in it.
So count your blessings. I really admire that, and you guys as a couple. It's so cool to see. I
I
mean, I
have
see a lot of them out there in this whole catfish community that we have here on YouTube and online and stuff. And you and her definitely stand out head and shoulders above the rest. You guys have been doing it for a long time. So
We have been doing it for a long time. Lynn Lang done it with Doc for a long time.
Mhm.
Um, Janet Fox and Bink have fished together for a long. There's others. I don't remember them all, but those are the headliners that stick out to me. Now we got Richard and Stephanie coming up, and Jerry and his wife, and uh,
Marcia, we got to make sure we
yeah,
all
Marcia
right, Marcia.
and Dockery and Katie, and there's just lots and
We,
lots and
we
lots
can't
of.
forget Betty and Brandon
Oh
and
no,
Dee
uh,
and Chad in that order, Chad, if you're listening. You got Christina and Josh. The list goes on, but I
it
think we got
does.
we got the ones that are kind of closest to us.
Exactly, yeah, and it's a lot of fun. I'll tell you something: if you fish together as much as we have, I pretty much know what she's going to do and what she expects from me, and it's the other way also. If one of us has a fish on, the other's grabbing a net, making sure that we're ready to go, or if it doesn't need to be netted or whatever. Um, I get in trouble sometimes for trying to boat jerk them in over the side with a rod because we was in a tournament one time and I'd done that to like a 4 or 5 pound channel cat and it broke the line and I got in a little trouble over that.
Guilty. It's the same thing. I do it all the time, especially on my lives and stuff. You never
Yeah.
get them in a boat; they don't count, as far as I'm concerned.
Yep, that's exactly right. Hey, there's Fish Smack in here. Man, have you seen his latest video?
What's going on, Trey? I haven't had a chance, but I'll make sure to go back.
Dude, that guy's outstanding work.
He does really good video work. Absolutely. If you guys haven't checked out Trey over at Fishmack, make sure you do. We've had him both on Panfish Nation and on my show, Catfishing Crop. He's a great guest. So
Uncle Jeep.
we got people going on into what is
But yeah, that's how we got started, and we had so much fun. It got to the point where it wasn't about winning the tournament, just going to see everybody.
it's
And
kind of
if
like
you
a
happen,
Mendota trip, right?
yeah, and if you happen to do good in one, then that was a home run.
Well, that was my next question I was going to ask you. I was going to say, what was it like in the early days of catfish tournaments?
I'll tell you how it was like. The tournament entry fees was 5, 10, $20, and if you won 100 or $150, it was a home run. The biggest thing that you had going was the U.S. Cats. They're gone now, but we fished those. I fished some of those with Marky, and we ended up doing really well in a few of those. We got second up at Warsaw one year, and I don't remember. We went somewhere else and done pretty good in one, but it it was really cool. And then Cindy and I won a tournament over in Canton on the Mississippi River, a Jack and Jill tournament over there. You had to have one man, one woman. Well, that was right in our wheelhouse. I started doing those when her and I run tournaments. I just thought it was a great concept, but a better way of getting more women
Hmm.
into the sport. And the first year that we wasn't running tournaments and went over there, I think it was the first year, it might have been the second one. But anyhow, we ended up winning it. At the time, it was the biggest tournament we ever won. I think we won $3,500.
Yeah, the family that plays together stays together, and what what a better idea than to getting them both in on these tournaments that guarantees that people are going to make it out there.
Oh yeah,
You're not
yeah,
going to have wives stuck at home or complaining that their husband's going out there,
yep.
which happens from time to time, and usually everybody's got their own set of circumstances, so it's
That's
understandable.
fact.
But when you're mixing that together with family, I mean, even some of the other tournaments I've seen out there, whether it's a fishing derby for kids, the parents have to be involved. I think
Hmm.
those are excellent ideas too, even the local fishing derbies we have around here. So
Yeah, I agree.
uh, someone says, is Lyle's dial-up network?
I don't think so.
That's all right on my side. Well, so that's cool. So you had the Jack and Jill stuff. What was the competition like back in the day? I mean, how big was the field back in the
Back when we
beginning?
first started out, it was 25 boats maybe on a big tournament. Most of it was just a bunch of us local guys, and like a bunch of guys that I went to school with or that was Mark's age that I knew my whole life. And mostly people that you knew, and everybody get together and you'd cuss and discuss before the tournament started. Um, and like I say, we'd race down to the granary. But when we found out that you'd get those blues underneath that dam down the cloud, it was a game changer because then it was a 11-mile ride on or 9 miles on the river. And whoever had the fastest boat, you tried to get down there before everybody else did, so they'd lock you through, and the rest of them get hung behind the dam.
Yeah. I mean, I've had people, I like to call them, civilians who don't understand fishing or tournament fishing. Not that I'm a pro or anything. Always ask me, why do they need such big, fast motors on the boat? It's just either first or you're last. And they
That's
kind of give me
yeah.
a
Second
funny look.
place is the first loser.
Pretty much, especially in tournament fishing. And people think, what kind of competition is in fishing? You guys don't know. Look at what happened with them walleye guys, Lyle.
Oh, I just can't get over that, Mark. I
Oh,
really can't.
a dear friend of mine once told me in racing, if you ain't cheating, you ain't winning. When everybody when everybody comes up to me and asks me, how do those guys think they're going to get away with it? I'll tell them that, and that usually shuts them down right
Yeah.
there. Not that I approve of it or anything, but I understand how it gets to that,
Well,
doesn't
that's the way it was, and I'd done the racing thing for a lot of years, and of course we'd run Fords. Everybody else run Chevrolets. You go in there with a Ford. It didn't matter what kind of motor you took down. Didn't nobody know what it was. They never seen a Ford motor. We run whatever we want to. They didn't know the difference, and we was stroking 351s back when they had a 355 limit on them. We was running over 400 cubic inches.
Yeah, my buddy Ryan over at Setting Hooks and Crossing Eyes, who I hope to fish with this spring at least.
That'd
He
be
says
fun.
our tournament's starting in a parking lot. When they say go, you see 25 to 30 trucks peeling out of the parking lot to go all different directions right down Route 31. Yeah, that's part of the reason why I don't do those tournaments around here. We got all those low dams, those low head dams. It's kind of hard, but maybe I'll do one of these this summer. That'd be kind of fun to do.
Oh yeah.
Okay, here's a question from Cody. Cody says, Lyle, how has the size of fish being weighed changed over the years?
Well, it's changed a great deal, Cody, from when we first started catching them. Like I say, when we take off and go down to that granary, if you caught a 15-pound fish, you pretty much had things lined up because we wasn't targeting giant fish. Didn't know you could catch them consistently. Everybody every once in a while somebody trip on a big one, and if they did, it was usually a flathead down around that granary. Or if they didn't go to the granary, they knew where there was some structure that they wanted to fish, but nobody wanted to boat 9 miles to have to walk through that dam. Well, after you found out how consistent the fish was under that dam, everybody was going down there, and it was fun. But it got to be the point at the beginning when it's 25, 30 pounds would win a tournament on 5 fish. Sometimes you get a 60 or an 80-pound weigh in, but not very often. And then it got to where they was going down below that dam, and certain times a year the fishing was better, and you would have weigh-ins that was anywhere from 60 or 70 pounds to 150, 200 pounds on 5 fish. And when you got to catching them kind of fish like that is about the time I started running tournaments, and I said, man, we got to do something about this because hardly anybody has live wells to take care of 200 pounds of fish on 5 fish. So I caught more than a little bit of grief over cutting the numbers back to 3 fish weigh-ins. I was cussed at and called everything in the book, but it was a good thing, and it was the right thing to do then, and it's still the right thing to do now because there's still a lot of boats manufactured that can't hold 3 big fish that people buy every day to fish out of. And 3 fish limit is a great place to go. I have argued with Dieter, and well, not really argued, but we've talked about it many, many times. They do a lot of tournaments out there with 1 or 2 fish. Well, anybody can trip on 1 big fish, and a few people can trip on 2, but they don't nobody trip on 3 big fish
No,
in a
somebody
tournament.
comes in with three hogs, and they either got really lucky or they really know what they're doing.
They know what they're doing, yeah. So that works out really well. A 3 fish limit, and 5 fish is just absolutely too much unless you're in a channel cat tournament.
Yeah,
Because
it's rough being what we call the tournament dictator, isn't it, Lyle?
it is. It is.
Yeah, but you
And,
do what
and
you got to do for the love of the sport and for your name.
that's right.
You know,
That's exactly right. And then to get back to Cody's question, now you got guys catching 100-pound fish in tournaments. 1 fish. Well, with 2 more, say one of them's a 30 and one of them's a 50. Well, you're almost 200 pounds on 3 fish. And it doesn't happen all the time, but the possibility is. So there's a lot more bigger weights now than ever before, and it's not because the fish are any bigger. I don't think it's because the average size fish being caught is bigger. If that makes sense.
mm-hmm. So, I mean, let's say you do get 3 huge fish. What kind of live well are they needing for something like that?
Mostly a custom live well. Now there's some boats like Sea Arcs and Excel, and I'm trying to think who else. But most of them are custom live wells. But a lot of them come out with
Polar
80,
Craft
90.
has got a big one too.
Polarcraft's got a big one, yeah.
I'm trying to think all
But
the
you
other
need
ones.
at least a 60-gallon live well, and for most tournament guys, they're going to want an 80 or 100-gallon live well.
Hey, Solo, can you ask that question a little while? We'll definitely get an answer for you, bud.
Absolutely.
Jody says, you say big fish. What was the weight of a big fish back in the tournament days?
Way back yonder, 15, 20 pounds was a big fish when I first started fishing tournaments. But it got bigger. Every once in a while you go to them U.S. cat tournaments and somebody catch a 40 or a 50, and once in a while they catch one bigger than that. But like I say, things changed when people started consistently fishing underneath dams and finding out that you could consistently target big blues. Because when I started, everybody they knew the blues was there, but nobody knew how to find them. We had depth finders that had ring lights on them. There wasn't the technology we have. The technology has made it to where you can find and catch bigger fish. It just has.
More data, more information, the better you can access.
Well, that's exactly right. Yeah.
That's basically all it is.
Yep.
Well, we can talk
We have
about
flashers. Man, when them flashers come out, I just couldn't believe it.
I've told this story 100 times. I remember my neighbor, who was one of my mentors, showing me the graph he had that had that thermal paper roll, and it his whole bottom of his boat would be nothing with. It would look like one big long grocery receipt at the bottom of his boat, and
Mm,
that's how he read his flashers.
yeah.
So
Now I never
very
did have a
simple.
paper graph. Um, Not that I didn't want one, I just couldn't afford it back in them days. But
Cody says, what do you think needs to stay the same, and what do you think needs to change about tournaments for the continued growth of the sport?
I'm going to get myself in trouble here.
Oh yeah, careful, careful.
Um, I think that more consistent rules throughout the United States, state to state. They can all use the same rules. And I've tried to get this done. You can't get people to want to be, but all the big tournaments could use one set of rules to do them all. Because I can't think of a tournament, a legitimate tournament that's got more than a 3 rod limit per angler. Not a legitimate tournament. All the big ones, 6 per boat, 3 per angler is usually how it goes, and that's enough when you're
And
tournament fishing.
I
Now,
don't think any of that's unreasonable.
no, it's not. I think that I think that they should add a minimum size live well to the boat. If your boat doesn't have, say, a 60 or an 80 or whatever's decided on, you cannot fish those tournaments if you're in known spots to have giant fish. Now, if you're in a place that's got 20-pound channel cat, which that's a giant fish,
Hmm.
but you could handle 3 of them in a boat and they'll survive
It all
because
depends on the tournament and the lake and the body of water you're
that's
fishing
right,
on. So,
and the boat setup. But they should all have a standard of live well thing throughout thing. If they'd make that standard uh, for all the states and all the big tournaments, it would make it so easier, much easier for tournament fishing. And the number one thing that they should stop and never do allow ever again is trailering. There's more devastation on fish hauled in boats running 80 and 90 mile an hour up highways that are rougher than a cob, uh, getting beat to death in them live wells to get back to a weigh-in because they left 5 minutes later than they should have. They may not see them not swim away, but you'll find them a day or two
day
later
or two later,
down the
yeah,
way. And trailering should never be allowed in a tournament ever.
I understand. I can see that too. Definitely. Mr. Kitty Whiskers, he had a real quick question here for you before we go on to the next one that I have for you. It says, do you think there should be a catfish limit in most states?
I do. And
I
and
agree. Make them a sport fish, correct? We've had this talk a
that
lot, Lyle.
you and I have talked about this a lot. The catfish is a sport fish in the state of Missouri. If you want regulations in your state, don't cuss the people making the regulations. Don't sit there and flap your gums about what should or could be done. Go to your representatives and get them made a sport fish because until you do, them regulations that you want are never going to happen.
Even if you can do it now, let me add this. I don't mean to step all over you, but a perfect example is the Fox River. We have a slot limit on flatheads, and that's just local. A local club did this a few
Right.
years back, and it's made a pretty big change. I'm not going to lie. If you can do something like that in your area, people, start there. Start locally and work your way out. That's all I can say.
Yep.
Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Oh, perfect. Now, you had mentioned your tournament. I don't know if a lot of people know this, but you used to run a tournament, correct, Lyle?
I did.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Um, I got approached by a guy from out east one time to be an affiliate tournament director for a group off of his stuff. And it didn't really work out too good. He didn't do what said he was supposed to do, and I ended up having to dip in a bunch of money. And he sent me plaques and stuff that year, shipped it to me to hand out to everybody. And they come in, all the glass was broke out of them, and I had a cluster and mad people. And I said, then if we're going to do tournaments, we're going to do them the correct way. And that's when we started Twisted Cat Outdoors. And we run them. City and I run them for 10 years. And in the beginning, we didn't know if we was going to survive or not. Didn't make any difference. We just wanted to have some fun and be able to fish tournaments in different areas. So we started having them all over the place, and it got to the point where it ceased to be fun because we couldn't fish them. You had to run them. And if we fished a tournament, we was leaving an hour, hour and a half after everybody else was already out, and having to come back in if we need to weigh fish that was maybe in trouble. So then you took another hour out, and it may happen 2 or 3 times a day. And then we'd have to come in early because what we always doing was donate money. You
Hmm.
can't win fishing them tournaments like that. So we was just started running the tournaments, and we didn't fish any more of them. And then we started fishing the bigger tournaments because that's what we wanted to do. And then we found out that everybody was happy to see us when we got there. Then that's what we done.
And how long did you do that for?
Oh, I don't know, a long time.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
know.
have a number on that really. I
Yeah,
never thought of it.
I
But
know that you were.
we ran the tournaments for 10 years, and I give it to Alex. And everybody says, "Oh, what did you sell for?" I said, "I didn't sell it. I give it to him. I give him everything it took to run tournaments. Everything."
And that's Alex Nagy, right?
Yep.
Okay, cool. I did not know that.
Yep.
I kind of did, but I just recently learned that, so not too long
Hmm.
ago. So I ain't gonna kid you. Um. So, yeah, all right. So, where did Catfish Weekly come to play with the tournaments? I know there was an overlap there, if I'm not mistaken.
There
Correct?
was, and when Paul got out, we had a couple of us trying to decide which direction we wanted to take the show. And in my mind, I wanted to be educational and teach people more about catfishing, and to draw attention to us, we would talk about tournament fishing. We'd have tournament anglers, we'd have tournament directors, we'd have all people involved as guests on the show. And it worked. I mean, we grew pretty rapidly for a while, and then uh, it got to the point where we was doing live broadcast when we go to Owensboro, Kentucky. I'd spend one entire day down there doing live feeds uh, out of a bait store down there. Jim and Sheila was so good to us, and we'd have barbecued. Brandon would fix hamburgers and hot dogs, and they'd give that stuff away, and we'd run 30 minutes, and we'd do interviews with everybody come through the door. And if they was staying there till 10 or 11 o'clock, we was still doing them. The whole day. That's what we done, and enjoyed doing that. It was usually on a Thursday before the tournament, and we started doing them everywhere we went. We went to Mississippi River Monsters. We do them day in, day out. We do them from Doc and I. Doc got scared because of the birds in there one day. We was doing them in the pyramid. We done them in the pyramid 3 years down there, and I think three, maybe four. And we'd have guys call us on cell phones wanting to give away products because there's so many people watching us. And it was amazing. And of course, Bill Dance, he was a great guy. He'd come in and do shows with us, and George, and we just had a wonderful time down there. We'd do shows a couple of nights a week down there. Uh, but I drove after back surgery. Cindy drove me 4 hours to do one for Alex one time, and then drove me back that night because we promised him we'd be there. And we didn't have no internet signal, didn't have no power. We was running it off of his truck's internet through his phone because that's the only service that we could get. But we done it. We done it. We said we was going to do it, and we did it. And by the time I got home, I was nearly bawling after having that work done on my back and then having to drive up there. But
Oh,
you tell somebody you're going to do something, you got to do it.
yeah. That's the way you kind of need to be.
Yep,
I don't care if it's yesterday or today or tomorrow.
that's
I think
exactly.
if people lived by that a lot more, we'd be in a lot better shape. So
I agree.
definitely. And you had to make lots of appearances from our conversations, correct?
Oh yeah,
Like
lots
when
of
you had
them.
a boat sponsorship and such going forward.
Yeah, they would require that we fish so many tournaments a year, and you'd have to make so many personal appearances if asked to. And we done that. Cindy and I would sit and visit with people. One of the biggest things for me and Cindy go to bed. I would sit out in the parking lot of motels and talk fishing people till way up in the morning hours. A lot of times, we'd people be out there and we'd talk about fishing and what kind of structure everybody was finding fish on and this and that, and it was just good times, and that was part of what we done. But yeah, it was a lot of fun.
It's a lot of fun, but it's a lot of work too. I know that for a
Oh,
fact.
it is. It is.
Nubby's got a question. He says, "Lyle, what do you think about a flathead only tournament?"
There's certain areas of the United States that would work. I know over on the getting close to Virginia over there, where Chris Souders fishes a lot, and James Big Fox and Janet fish, where Doc used to live. They catch a lot more flatheads over there than we do around here, and those guys could do that. Um, you can't do that around here. If you're going to win a tournament around my area, you're going to be fishing for blues. Now, you might get a good flathead. I've been in tournaments where guys turned in 50 and 60-pound flatheads, but they'll tell you just as honestly as I'm going to tell you, they tripped on that fish. They was after blue.
Yeah, they need you at the podium. You need to show fish.
Yeah, that's
You
you
know,
got to be in the money. You got where I'm at. You're going to be fishing for blues. You just are.
yeah,
And if you
we
get a
have
good flathead, that's awesome.
we have King of the Fox here, and it's flathead only. I think they do channel cats once a year, but that's because we don't have any blues. I guarantee you, if we had blues, they'd be counting them too.
Oh
So
yeah, yeah,
it helps, and we do all right with flatheads, but that's because we got a lot of guys fishing for flatheads, and that's what we know up here. So
yeah, yeah. I'd love to see that many flatheads here. I
it's
really
hard,
would.
but people are going to fish for blues as far as well as now. I'm going to take a guess. I don't know, but I'm guessing they're going to fish for blues because they're going to catch blues, right? And they're used to tripping on flatheads. There's not too many people out there that are diehard target flathead fishermen. To be honest, that
Not
I
as
know of.
many.
There's
Not
some
as
out
many.
there. There
Yep.
is either by necessity or by a couple of screws loose in your head, but.
I just think flatheads, they're the king of cats. I don't care what anybody says. I love to catch them, but as far as tournament fishing goes, blue cats is where the money's going to be. It just is. Now, um, would I rather catch a flathead? I don't know. I like catching flatheads, but I like catching blues too. But my favorite's probably channel cat.
That I know about you. Tell me about your. Well, here. Let me say this first. I'd like to see a kids tournament. Now, anybody can use this idea for bullheads. I think that would be the coolest thing in the
Oh
world to see,
yeah,
Lyle. I
behind
think
a
we could.
pond, city lakes. A lot of them's full of bluegill or boys, and that'd be an awesome thing to do for kids.
Yeah, I thought about throwing something like that together locally here at the local park and stuff, and I got a little pushback from the Department of Parks and stuff. But I think that would be kind of fun to have. So something to do with insurance.
Yeah.
Let's not talk about insurance. So what kind of boat sponsors you have? Somebody asked, out of all the boats you've had, which one was your favorite? Let's talk about some of the boats you had.
Well, of course, we have our Tracker Tundra that I dearly love, and the main reason I dearly love it is because it's paid for, and I like that best of all.
Best reason
Best of
whatsoever.
all. But for 3 years, we had a monster cat, the very first monster cat that was built, and it was a great boat. I loved it. Um, I thought it was one of the greatest boats ever built. I helped design the replacement for it, and then they didn't do anything with it with Aquaka. We went through stuff, and I got the plans for it someplace of what would probably be heads and tails better than anything that's ever been on the market. But it would cost a great deal of money to build that boat, but it would be worth it. And then we got a Lumacraft. We had a Trophy 205 with a 250 horse um, Yamaha on it, and not only is it the best riding boat I ever sat in, it didn't run quite as fast as that Monster Cat, but that Monster Cat had 300 E-Tech on it. I mean, it was a screamer.
It also had a flatter bottom, I'm guessing, right?
A little bit, a
A little
little
bit.
bit. But that Alumacraft was a very nice boat. It was my favorite of all the boats that I've had. I really liked it. Um, it was pretty much maintenance free. Four stroke, 250 horse, and it'd talk to you. You know, you get up and dance on the water. There didn't very many of them outrun it. There's a few of them that did. Um, I know there was a bunch of people. We was in a tournament in Canton, Illinois, one night or one day, uh, and a guy kept talking about how fast his boat was, and I let the guy that was fishing with Cindy and I drive because he knew where the fish was at. He pre-fished, so we didn't have to spend so much time in the motel. And he took off, and it was 9 miles between where we got out and the dam that he went to, and we was over a mile. We could just barely see the boats behind us when we got there. In that was in that monster cat, and the guy that was talking about how fast his sea arc was, he didn't have nothing to say after that. Mouth closed time.
Giddy up. You
And
know,
we just run off and left him.
they're putting 400s on them now, Lyle. How do you feel about that?
Um, at some point on these rivers, there's going to be something that says it's too much. Even on the lakes, because there's been a lot of boats sunk with high winds in some of these
Hmm.
tournaments over the years. Um, at some point, they're going to have to say that's too much for small crafts. I
Hopefully
don't
they
know
can
if we've
hopefully they
reached
can
that point yet or not.
yeah, hopefully they can engineer their way around it. So we'll see what happens.
It's
There's a
just
lot of
like I've
smart
always
people.
said about stock cars. They shut them down with plates to where they could not go as fast because they was going over 200 miles an hour. And I've always contended that those crew chiefs will figure out a way to keep that on the ground. Let them
Mhm.
boys race. If they go 300 mile an hour, let them crank it up. Let the big dog eat.
It
They'll
don't ma-
figure out how to keep it.
you don't make no money if you don't finish. That's the way I look at it.
That's exactly right.
Now here, wait, I'm gonna jump forward here. Uncle Jeep says, "Wow, a serious question for me. I didn't know I could do that." Here's a question from Uncle Jeep. Uncle Jeep says, "For the years you've done Catfish Weekly, who has been your most memorable guest and why?"
Well, I'm going to say my most memorable guest was probably Doc before he was a part of the show, just because him and I was good friends and we had done stuff back and forth for years that most people didn't know about, and he was a good friend and still is, but he's down in Alabama now, and I'm up here, and we don't talk as much as we once did. But yeah, he was probably my most memorable guest. We had a lot of them on. We had a lot of good guests over the years.
He's retired from everything but actual fishing, I think.
That's it. Yeah,
Good for Doc. God bless him.
absolutely. Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah.
I thought for sure you were going to say it was me. Oh, wait, that's a Chad answer right there. So, what episode was that tonight? Do you recall that you did?
Um, I do not. It's a big number though. It's
Well, for those of you listening on the podcast, Lyle does Catfish Weekly right before my show here on YouTube. Make sure you go over to YouTube and check them out. I got the links in the description. I also have links over to Panfish Nation, which I'm Lyle's co-host on every Thursday night on YouTube
mhm.
at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. And you upload that to like Spotify and Anchor and all that too,
I
right?
sure do. Yeah, and it was
You can
461.
461. And
Now
well, you
that's
can
just
listen to
Monday night shows. That doesn't include all the outtakes that we do all
all
over there.
the
It's I don't know what that number is.
and the tournament stuff that you hit on there and the trips over to CatCon and all of those
Yeah,
other expos.
yeah.
Uh,
That we used to do a lot of those. Sure did.
and we also just did our 100th episode on Panfish Nation, didn't we, Lyle?
Yes, we did.
100 episode. That goes pretty fast.
Yep, that was a lot. That's been a lot of fun doing that. I really enjoy that.
I enjoy it too. And my wife wants me to thank you personally for getting me into tying jigs.
I hear that a lot.
I just got a box of stuff today and she's like, "What's that?" I go,
Let me tell you.
it's kind of hard to hide a stack of these, and I'm holding up a G box like a 5700 through the door. But yeah, I got busted.
It is what it is.
So let's talk a little bit about Panfish Nation. So
Okay.
how'd you come up with that idea? A great
I,
idea, if I may say so myself.
I wanted to do something other than catfishing, and let's face it, bluegill is my next favorite thing to catch. And we have a mutual friend. His name is James Dockery, and I sent James a message one day, and I said, James, I would like to try this and see if I can make it work. He said, well, it'll work. He said, it'll work. And I said, well, how do you know? He said, because nobody else is doing one. And he was right at the time. That nobody even talked about catching bluegill unless you watched bluegill specific videos, which
Mhm.
every one I've ever seen, the numbers on them are fabulous. You know what I mean?
And you notice that everybody does them from time to time.
Yep, everybody does them. Dieter Bellhorn's done them.
Hmm.
Now I know that sometimes he might use them for bait if he's struggling getting bait. Um, but a lot of people have made bluegill or panfish type videos, and they all do really well. So I thought that it would be a good idea to do a show like Catfish Weekly pardon me, based off of the similar format, and just talk about bluegill and walleye and bass and anything
Crappie.
crappie, yeah, all that stuff, and anything that people could come up with, and I think it's working.
I think so too. I know we're having a good time. I know the people that tune in every Thursday night really enjoy the show. We got a lot of diehards in there.
And there
People
were,
that Yeah, people that tune in are how do I say this? The jig tying stuff, the off-colored stuff that we've done on Panfish Nation, and that's kind of overflowed to a couple other channels, including James Dockery Fishing.
yeah,
Definitely, that's on Wednesday nights. So
yep,
there's a lot of good stuff out there. It's a lot of fun, a lot of monkeying around, a lot of monkey business. But we're all big family here. We take good care of each other, and
that's
we love
exactly
hanging
right.
out with each other. Else we wouldn't keep doing it, right?
That's right, and you get a bunch of these once in a while.
Yeah, Lyle does giveaways on the channel. He's always giving away jigs. When I'm doing tying, I've given away a bunch in the past, so that's always fun to do. So make sure you check out the links in the description. If you're listening to this on podcast, I'll make sure to include that and check it out every Thursday night, 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. You can see me and Lyle on there live. So,
And we will have a good time. There's Chadwick.
Chad from Fields to Water.
Mike Iaconelli, yeah, he's been doing a lot of small fish fishing, and
I met Mike Iaconelli. Um, I met him a couple years back, and he actually took about 20 minutes to talk to me a little bit, which is a lot when you got a line of
yeah,
people or a big group of people surrounding him. Took a couple pictures with me, and he seems to be like the nicest guy in the world. Maybe if I might be seeing him in a couple of weeks, Lila. If I do, maybe I'll bring him a hat and see if we can't get him on one of our shows.
oh, that'd be great. Yeah,
We'll see what I can
he's a
happen.
cool dude.
I make no
He's
promise.
not only is he a great fisherman, he's a great entertainer.
He is. He knows how to do it.
That's what you have to do. Um, you have to be able to get through to people where they understand and have a good time doing it. Gerald Swindell is one of the most entertaining guys there is. I mean, he's just funny dude. That's all, and he catch fish.
Even one of the ones I like to watch or I have in the past definitely would be like Richard Genie's definitely. There's a couple of younger guys that really like to watch too. You know, you got Ty Pig Patrol or Pig Patrol TV, Josh.
Yep,
He's entertaining. He's always, he's a good dude. He catches fish and he's pretty much as basic as it gets, worms and a jig head.
that's about it.
And he does great for himself. He's got a growing family, and he's building himself a good career on there. And it's not because he's not entertaining, right?
No, that's exactly right.
That's the one of the hardest things to overcome on YouTube is trying to be entertaining.
The biggest thing that I see with guys struggling on YouTube videos is they're trying to be somebody they're really not.
They're not.
If you will be yourself, people will watch you.
If you look at a lot of these bigger channels, they're doing one video a week. You know, they're
Mhm.
not flooding everything everywhere, and they're able to keep people watching, keeping the eyes on there, and that gets them more views. So I don't know
Yeah.
how else to do it. I mean, look at our buddy Keith over at Fishing Stuff.
Oh, good as gold.
Keith's a good dude. I wouldn't be surprised if he's watching in the background here, or he'll watch the replay. But Keith knows how it's done. I've had some long conversations with him, and hopefully we're gonna apply that to both my channel and to Panfish Nation definitely this year. So
Absolutely. Uh, I'll get a phone call from Keith every once in a while, and he says, "I got something I want to visit with you about." Okay, try this. Just try it. If it don't work, you ain't lost nothing. But if it does work, you can thank me later. That kind of deal. Not those
I'll,
exact
I'll
words.
get messages once in a while. It's been a little while, but I get messages from Keith with stuff like that. He's always watching, and he's his input's always welcome. He knows
Oh,
very much what he's doing. There's a lot of guys out there this day and age, both the fishing
oh
world,
yeah.
the tournament world. You got my buddy Brandon. He's kicking butt and taking names. You got my other buddy Eric B. I mentioned those two guys because
Hmm.
I know them. They're local guys, but they're finding their way. You got local people like Alex Perrick, who's from around the area. He's making all sorts. He's so successful, he had to take some time off. Of course, you got John B in that. So, I mean, it's doable. I really think that it is. So, if
It
you're, if,
is, and you know
you know what they have in common, Lyle?
what's that?
They have a passion for it, and they're
That's right.
themselves,
That's right.
which is where I was going with that. So,
Yeah, I think that Keith is another one that ranks right up there with Doc, of one of my favorite guys to have
mhm.
on. It's hard not to say Doc's name because him and I go back so far, but Keith is right in there. I will never forget the first time I met him was at one of the Catfish conference. He just started out. He didn't have a handful of subscribers. I was one of them. And I told him, I said, you're gonna do some good. Why don't you be a guest on Catfish Weekly? He said, oh man, he said, I don't want to do that. He said, I don't want. Then nobody knows who I am. I said, well, if you change your mind, he said, if I ever change my mind, you'll be the first one that I ever do. And I said, all right. Well, every year I would hit him up, and sometimes 2 or 3 times a year. And he got to growing, and the next thing you know, he's passed a bunch of the big dogs.
Mhm.
Just because he's entertaining and he comes up with great content. And talked to him one day, and I said, "Are you ready?" He said, "I think I am." And we had him on there. It was one of the biggest shows we ever done live. But he's just a hoot, man. He's a great guy. He's so knowledgeable. He can tell you things. He can talk over my head on YouTube really quick. Um, because he studied it, he learned it, he knows what it takes, and he might not tell you everything, but if you'll he's just like the old pro fisherman at a tournament. He's not going to tell you where he was at and what he was using, but if you'll listen really close, you'll learn something. That's
He'll
Keith.
drop some hints,
That's
definitely.
that's Keith in a basket. Yeah.
100. I was bugging him too to be on my show before he was, and you know what he told me all the time? I got to do Lyle's show first. I got to do Lyle's show first. I'm like, well, go do Lyle's show and then call me. He's like, oh. He's like, in due time. I'm not saying that I made him do your show, but he would definitely always stand by his word and remind
Oh
me of
yeah,
that.
absolutely. Yeah, he's a great guy, and um, we had a couple of shows with him and Dieter, and the last one with Bob from Bobcat Outdoors on talking about YouTube and editing and all kinds of stuff. And there's a lot of guys, and Bob, when we had him as a guest, I never realized he is extremely knowledgeable about editing and doing a
Yep.
bunch of stuff too, and that's why I include him in that show because I thought he would be an asset to it, and he was.
Definitely was. He puts out definitely, Bobcat. He puts out some good content. He's got a real good he's got a good background in graphic arts and stuff, and
He
it it,
sure
it
does.
it flows over into video editing, and it definitely shows. James Dockery Fishing had a comment I wanted to highlight for you. He says, "Don't be your true self. It always gets you in trouble."
That's true.
It will get you in trouble. That's true.
Many times it is.
Then we got Air on it. Says Lyle, I like that guy CNC. You have him on your show sometime. For those you don't know, I was a guest co-host while Lyle was having some work done for
Yeah,
about what 3 weeks. Lyle, that was a
yeah,
good stunt.
yep.
Hasn't had me back since though. Son of
Well, we can make that happen,
a. All right,
but you got to deal with
only
Chad.
no when Chad needs a vacation day, then call me on there.
Okay.
There's our buddy Jay's catfishing. He's saying hello. Oh, there's our buddy, the Fraternal Union of Catfish Deplorables. He says, two legends, one screen. Wait a minute. I don't know if now Lyle knows what that means.
I know who that is.
I know who that is too. Still waiting on one of them stickers. Aren't you supposed to send me one, Lyle?
I got a whole stack of them here. I keep
All right,
forgetting
good.
they get put away. We've been
I,
doing the floor, and now we're painting. Or we're not. Cindy is, but yeah, I got to give away a bunch more of them. No, we can't, Lyle. Don't give him a false hope.
my goodness.
He's rough.
He's
He's
my
rough.
buddy. Friends like him.
Yeah.
I better hide my peanut M&Ms.
Boy, no kidding.
I
He
think he was
loves
going
them things.
through him by the bag full on Catfish Weekly tonight, wasn't he?
That's something there.
So what do you got going on this year? What's your plan for both your online presence, whether it's Catfish Weekly or Panfish Nation and fishing wise?
I'm having a good time with Panfish Nation. I really enjoy doing that. It's something new and something growing, and we're going to see how that works out. Um, I got two pretty good co-hosts on Catfish Weekly. I really do, and if I want to take time off now, I feel like that Chad and Josh can take care of it. I don't have to worry about it. I know I had something happen here a while back, and they done wonderful without me, and it looks like that's where we're going to be headed because I want to get back to fishing more. We had struggled last year, and then it got so hot I didn't want to go fishing, and we're going to get back to doing that and trying to do some recording and stuff, and hopefully this year we'll see how that works out. And if it does, great. If it don't, that's okay too. I know that I don't have to worry about come in and do the shows if I don't feel like doing them. So
We're going to tie a lot more jigs too. We got some other
oh
stuff
yeah,
that we were planning. We're definitely going to be live from Mendota, right, Lyle?
I would bet on that. Yeah,
I look forward to that. If you want to sneak in like anybody else can while we're up there, if you're up there, we're going to do it live. So come
yep.
on up, fish with
We
us.
just the only thing we have to have is good internet connection. But now you don't even really have to have that. You can use your cell phone.
Cell phone works just fine. It does up there too. That's a pretty heavily populated urban area, so they
Yep.
got all sorts of towers and stuff.
I got to tell you, Mark. I know that we had Josh and Chad and you and I and Lance sticks out in my mind and Parker and them guys, but we had a pretty good show up there, and it was underneath a just a roof place up there.
Yeah,
But
it
we
was
had
a
a
little picnic
yeah.
grove deal. A lot of fun. I know Lance came up. He was surprised that we let him on the show. It's like, come on down. We don't care.
Oh
We have
yeah,
a good time with
absolutely.
everybody.
It was
We're
fun.
always approachable. Yeah, you had mentioned that in the show tonight. Somebody asking if they could take a picture with you or something like that. And
Yeah.
I'm always thrown off a little bit when I get asked for that, but I'm getting better at obliging, and now I understand why.
Well, I have to tell you, and I've told this recently, I think on Catfish Weekly, but we pulled into our first Monsters on the Ohio, and everybody was staying in a Ramada Inn down there, and the parking was horrible. It was really close quarters, and you needed people to help spot you as you was backing in them places. And Cindy and I drove for a long, long time, and it was like 10:30, 11 o'clock when we pulled into the motel. And and some people knew we was coming in because I talked to some of them on the phone, and they was waiting for us to come in and visit with us. And I was blown away with that. And we got backed in, and the truck unhooked from that. And after a while, Cindy went to bed. She was just so wore out from that long drive. And I stayed out there with them. If they're good enough to to wait up for me to get there. We're gonna do whatever we can do, and we had a great time. And Teresa and Dave was there, and Chuck and his wife, and they was all there. And Chuck caught bait because I couldn't get any, and he brought me bait from Alabama, and that's how it worked. You know, if one of us was getting something for somebody else, and you just work together with that, and you know, Doc and Lynn was down there, and there must have been, I'm going to guess, 30 or 40 people out there. And Steve Douglas come down through there, and him and Lisa in his truck, and we was all out there visiting. And next thing you know, there was people coming out of the rooms, and there was more and more. The crowd got bigger and bigger. As at some point, you got to say that's enough. I need to get some rest, but I'll never forget that. You know, never forget it.
And that's definitely what it's like when we've met up in the past with a bunch of people. So I think that tradition's going to carry on, and I think you're a big reason why it's going to. So
Well, I hope so. You know, there's a lot of things that go on over the years, and some of them work out, and some of them don't. But if you're just true to what you say you're going to do, that things will work out for you, and that's kind of where I've always tried to be. And uh, you can't believe everything you hear, and you can't trust the people. Sometimes you can't trust the people that you're supposed to be able to. It just doesn't work out that way. You just go on with do what you're going to
yeah,
do, and let the rest of them work its way out.
let the cards fall where it may.
There you
Pretty
go.
much is the way you do it. That life's like that, always has been. It's always going to be like that.
Yeah,
Find the people that are close to you and the ones that aren't going to stab you in the back, and go from there.
that's right.
Lyle,
Yep.
I want to thank you for a couple of things. I want to thank you for being on tonight. I appreciate you taking the
Oh,
time to
you're very
spend with us,
welcome.
especially after spending a whole hour with Josh and Chad. I know that's a lot of work. And I want to thank you for my time on Panfish Nation. I really appreciate it. It's helped me grow as
Oh,
not only a broadcaster, but as a fisherman in general. And also thank you for being my friend, buddy. As
you're very
cheesy as
welcome.
that sounds, buddy.
We do have a good time, and
We do have a lot of fun, bud.
I think that Panfish Nation has a bright future, and looking forward to watching it grow as time goes along. And as long as you're happy with being there, I think we'll do just fine.
Thank you very much, sir. Also, I want to remind everybody to tune into the bait shop on Thursday night. Chad's having the guys from the Winter Blues tournament he's having on there. Tune into Panfish Nation right after that on Panfish Nation on YouTube. And then Chad's tournament, I believe, is on Saturday, if I'm not mistaken, right, Lyle? Or
Yes, it
Sunday?
is.
It's on Saturday. Okay.
Yep.
So check him out. You'll get all the details on Chad's show over at Fields to Water. All right,
Yep.
everybody. Have a great night. Thank you for tuning in. Again, Lyle, thank you for your time.
You're very welcome, sir.
We'll see y'all on Thursday night. Bye.